Ready? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. Ready to hear some Democrats talk?
Yeah!
There you go. One of the things I hate most in the world is, I don't know what Democrats stand for. Well, listen, read. We stand for lots of things. And getting our message right is probably one of our biggest challenges, but we stand for stuff, and so don't lose track of that. So I want to welcome you to the campus of the University of Nevada, Reno, and the IGT Matheson Knowledge Center for this debate between two of our three announced cd2 candidates. First, I want to say a little bit about me so that you can understand any biases I may have. My name is Chip Evans. I was the Democratic nominee for cd2 in the last election. I'm the host of the Chip Evans Show. I'm decidedly liberal and progressive, whatever particular term, how you define those things. I think I fit into both of them somehow. And so that you know, I have not endorsed in this race. One of our three candidates is not here tonight. Clint Cobley is the third announced candidate at this stage. And I'm not aware of any other announced candidates from the Democratic side. There may be more. The filing for this election has not ended yet. So who knows? You may get so excited today about the candidates we have here that you go back and decide, maybe I want some more people in that race, so you get more attention to them. Clint's campaign manager made a statement to me a while back. He says Clint looks forward to these events after all the candidates are identified, so after closing. He's glad to participate in these, but thought it was premature. We have not agreed a particular format. I'm going to suggest one in a moment and give myself some permission to change it as time goes on if needed. But I will describe it and ask the candidates for their agreement. I suggest that we have a 5-minute opening statement, each of you. I understand the coin toss has been had, and Rick will be first. I will ask a number of questions after the opening statements, to which both of you may respond. And I will also solicit a shorter response from you to the statements made to those questions. After my questions, I will solicit questions from the audience. So be thinking about what you'd like to ask. I'll assume these questions are for both candidates unless you specifically address them to one. Irrespective of who you address it to, any response they are given, both candidates will have a chance to respond to the question if they choose, and they may choose not to in some cases. When things seem to be winding down, I'll give the candidates an opportunity for a 3-minute closing statement, in opposite order of the opening statement, so you will be the first to deliver the closing statement. And if that's okay with both the candidates, sure. We'll proceed on that basis. Okay, landing in real time. So, with that, Rick, you have, I'd like to introduce Rick Shepard. Rick has run for this election, the seat in the 2016 election. He is an announced candidate for this election. And so, Rick, 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hi. Nice to have you here. Yeah. I'm glad you're here. As you just stated, my name is Rick Shepard. I am running for Congress. I want to replace Mark Kennedy, and I have a lot of reasons why. I don't think I have to tell you that cd2 has problems. Healthcare, education, jobs, you name it, everything that's wrong with our country, we have representative issues here in Northern Nevada. We have rural communities that don't have access to high-speed internet. We have rural counties that have few, if any, healthcare providers or healthcare providing networks. The jobs that we've brought in have been as a result of $1 billion in tax abatement. So we're not building the new schools as quickly as we should. People are flooding into this state for many good reasons. It's very positive for business, and labor is cheap. But therein lies the problem. Labor is cheap. Rent prices are out of control, and there is a huge homeless problem throughout cd2, and it's getting ever worse. These problems aren't unique to cd2, but they're certainly represented here. As your representative in Congress, I seek to remediate these problems nationwide. There are things that we can do immediately, like raising the minimum wage. Nothing gets people out of poverty faster. We started the minimum wage in 1938. It's been raised 22 times. But the first 19 of those times were in the first 50 years of its existence. And since then, we've fallen behind in keeping up with productivity and inflation. and the buying power of the average person has fallen. Housing prices are going the other direction, and rents, of course, are going with it. So, raising the minimum wage is probably the first and fastest way we can start lifting people out of poverty. Moving towards a Medicare for all universal health care solution will get the healthcare premiums off the back of both the small business owner and the employee. The only reason you even get insurance through your employer is because of wage and price controls during World War II. That is the only reason. Since then, 56 countries have figured out that universal health care is the right answer, and there's nothing stopping us from doing it, save with a political will. And political will comes from your elected representatives. I promise I will bring that political will, a will that has been sorely absent in our district and throughout our country. Thank you.
And Dr. Van Solm has been a candidate for this office in the primaries in both 2014, 2016, and now 2018. He persists. And we're actually going to talk about some of the benefits of the fact that both Rick and Vance have been out there talking and listening to people for a long time. But with that, let me ask Dr. Holm to issue his 5-minute opening remarks.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody coming out. We didn't have the biggest turnout, we wanted to have a lot more. Because this is our opportunity to introduce you to us. We want to introduce you to the best candidate for this fall. This fall is going to be a referendum on Trump policies. This particular district would be the absolute best district for the Democrats to win. It is a solid red district, and it has a candidate, or it has an incumbent, who was the chairman for Trump's election committee in Nevada. It is time to stand up and show them that we are not Trumpites, that we actually have brains, and that we want to address the problems that are existing in America and mostly in Nevada. Chip mentioned that I ran twice. Yep, I'm a loser. So the thing is that the issues have not changed. In 4 years, the issues have not changed. We need better health care. We need better jobs that actually provide a living wage rather than a minimum wage. We also need to have better education for the people in this state. We're number 51. There's only 50 states. How can we be 51? We don't even catch up to the District of Columbia. There's obvious things that need to change. So we are going to make those changes. The Democratic Party is going to win this election this fall. This is the time for us to go blue. But I want you to remember, when we win, we do not represent just the blue. We also represent the red. We also represent the undecided. We will be representing the red, white, and blue. It is time that we face the fact that it is not supposed to just be partisan politics, change from one hand to the other, and end up with the same situation. It's time that we elect leaders to represent the people of Nevada. That is what we need. We do not need another party politician. We need somebody with real plans. We need somebody with experience, and that's why I'm hoping that you'll vote for me. So some of the things about me that you people may not know. So I'm a veteran. Not only that, I'm a retired veteran. Not only that, I'm a disabled retired veteran. You cannot see my disability. But when you come up and talk to me, you'll recognize, you didn't hear a word I said. I don't hear very well, but I do listen. And that is something that's critical. I have to listen to what the people say and take those issues to Washington. That is what I want to do. So in addition to being a previous military man, I flew in jets, and then I didn't make major, and so I retired. And well, what do I do now? I decided to go to medical school. So I went through and I put myself through medical school, thanks to the GI Bill. No, I used that up before. But I put myself through medical school with the retirement from the military. I'm trying to give back what I received from the military. I'm trying to give back to my country. I want to serve in every way that I can. We're now coming to a crunch point. We need elected leaders who actually represent the people, stand for the people. I am one of those people. I'm of the people and for the people. Why do you say that? I'm a lifelong Democrat. Why are you a Democrat? Because when I was 10 years old, my dad died. And I got to be one of those beneficiaries of the social safety net. It worked. So I'm not one of those people that are asking and begging for anything. I use it to return to a normal life. That's what our country needs, to recognize that sometimes people need a little bit of assistance. That's what we need in this country. A lifelong Democrat. Why? Because my mom, she was involved in the union when I was a kid, so I learned about the unions. That made a difference. They got real wage increases. They got real benefits. That's what we need to have representing the people of Nevada in Washington. I hope that you'll understand with my experience and my ideas that are going to come out that I am the person that you want to have as the candidate to run against the Trump. Again, this is going to be a referendum to say, no, we believe in the good ideals of America, not in the Trump ideals. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your service, Captain. So this is the section where I get to address some questions to the candidates. I do this from my experience of having been out in the field and been a candidate in this district. I want to give both of these men extremely high marks for getting out and listening. They have been all the way over to West Windover. They have been throughout this district. They've met with tribal leaders. They've met with people here in Washoe. They've gone to the corners of the district. And one of the things I'm going to ask each of you to do is to identify not necessarily your top 3 issues, but what you are hearing at this moment are the top 3 issues in CD2. And I'm going to ask you to address those one at a time. So if you'll write those 3 down for yourself so you don't lose track of them, I'll ask you to share the 3, and then we'll walk through your top 1 separately. So let me know when you've got the 3 down. I didn't necessarily be in order, but you might think about your top 1 first. But with that, the 3 issues just listed off really quick that you're hearing from your position.
Healthcare, housing, wages.
Health, education, and jobs.
Okay. So it sounds like healthcare is on the list.
Yep.
And the federal government has a big role to play in that, as well as the state. And the federal government doesn't do their job. So, Mr. Shepard, I'm going to give you the first chance to describe what you do as the representative for CD2.
Thank you. I have a vision of universal healthcare. For too long, we have had to deal with networks, co-pays, premiums, deductibles, having to wait for pre-authorizations to come through, and then you're still out of pocket. People have been avoiding getting their own health care when they know what they need and even have a prescription, so they don't have the funds to take care of it. We are done going out of pocket for health care. Let's make one thing perfectly clear. There is nothing medically necessary about an insurance company. Absolutely nothing. There is no reason why we can't take care of all of our healthcare needs through the general fund and obviate everything that has to do with we the people opening our pockets for healthcare directly. This is something that should be a nationalized good provided to everyone like 56 other nations have already figured out. The veterans are especially vulnerable to this because many people don't realize that once a veteran becomes senior, they often go from TRICARE as their primary to Medicare as their primary, which means that you're dealing with veterans, and there's a lot of them in rural counties, and they are very upset with Mark Amadei with his votes on health care. Unfortunately, he's been on both sides of it, so no matter how you feel about it, you're wrong one way or another. So the healthcare premiums are concerns for small business owners as well as the people who are employed. So that's a huge impediment for the business owner, and it's a burden for the people in CD2. I've spoken with Trump supporters, miners, ranchers, and farmers out in the rural counties, and none of them have a kind word to say about Mark Amadei, and it is because of his positions on health.
Did you have a particular response to what Rick said, or would you like to just simply go into your own perspective?
So, healthcare in America. I don't know anything about it because I'm a doctor. Wait, no, I deal with it every single day. And every single day I have to deal with people who don't have insurance. Or, even better, they have insurance, but their deductible is so high that they don't know what to do. They don't get the health care that they need because they can't afford to spend up to $6,000 to get an MRI and to get all these other things. I disagree with Rick. I disagree with most Democrats in that we should have universal Medicare. That's a bad idea. It will bankrupt the country. What we need to become enlightened like the Europeans. We need to have, I'm going to say the word, socialized medicine. We need to have the federal government take over healthcare and not promise to pay for healthcare, but to actually provide healthcare. By doing so, you can take the money that is currently spent on Medicaid and Medicare, $1.1 trillion, that's 1.1 million millions, and instead you could spend $800 billion, tax savings of $300 billion, and buy hospitals and pay the doctors directly and pay for everything. Do the calculations and everything can be covered for $800 billion. Why aren't we doing it? Because of the lobbies of the AMA, insurance companies, and the big hospitals. So they're preventing us from having good health care. Well, I hear that we've got the best health care in the world. We have the most expensive. In the last 2 years, our longevity in the United States has gone backwards. Whoa, what is going on there? It's because people can't afford to pay for their health care. They can't do it. It's time that we make sense and actually provide health care. One of those wonderful things that we have right now, and I do agree with Rick, is that we have insurance. Get rid of it, scrap it, it's unnecessary. They take 25% out of every dollar that they get and use it for administrative and profits. Get the profit motive out of medicine. Medical care and the health of the citizens is what should matter. We should not care about how much it costs, we should care about, are the citizens healthy? That is something that I want to be the person to introduce that bill in Congress. That's why I ran 4 years ago. That's why I ran 2 years ago. That's why I'm running today. The situation has not changed. I want to be the person that introduces sensible medical care, not just paying for health care.
Mr. Shepard, did you have a response? I'll ask you to pull up your second issue that you'd like to discuss, and you get to leave off.
So my second one is education. So we do not put enough emphasis on true education, and the people that do pursue education, they're paying far too much. Bernie Sanders has an excellent idea. Let's get free education for college. That is the best idea ever. For this country, look back in history. What time in the United States history did we have the greatest progress? Right after World War II. What happened? The GI Bill made college affordable for millions of returning veterans. When we invest in the people of this country by providing education, we benefit the entire nation. It's time that we figure out that we should do this. Again, I would turn to the Europeans. They figured this out. Are we falling behind because we don't want to have socialism? There's something wrong with that concept. A government that is responsible to the citizens, not to corporations. We need to start looking at how do we invest in our citizens. This is an easy one. What's really great about it is the payoff is for the entire country. The payoff is for big business. The payoff is we have more physicians. The payoff is we have all sorts of educated people. That's one thing that we need to do. So how are you going to give away free education to everybody? I think there's a solution. Just like the GI Bill, have service through the country. Have 2 years or 3 years, we'll let us politicians decide what's appropriate, and then you get 4 years at a public institution, a state school, and it should be the state that you're originally from. That's where you should go to school. If you want, that's what they should pay for the rest of the country. But it should be something that we're investing in the citizens of this country and make certain that they understand that we expect a payback. That payback is going to be they're going to have a better job. They're going to do the research. They're going to be the doctors. They're going to be the lawyers. They're going to be the teachers. That is how we can improve education. One of the other things that I had in my health plan is another way that you're going to get it. I mentioned the 2 years of service. So if you have a federal medical system, you have those people come in for 2 years. They do their time, and then they go out and they have that opportunity to go to college. What a great way to also test for who would be a good doctor in the future. You have those citizens who are going through Fed Med, and they say, you know what, I really like this. I'm going to become a doctor. And you pay for medical education as well. We don't have enough doctors. We need to get really good about serving our people and investing in our citizens. Thank you.
Mr. Shepherd, your response?
I echo most of his sentiments, and at the risk of belaboring the point, that there's clearly room for improvement. If there's money for bombs, there's money for these other programs. It's a matter of priority.
Well, you now set up to prepare your next issue.
So housing is what I listed as number 2. And the good news is this doesn't take a lot of time to explain. There's about 6 million homeless people in America, and upwards of 2 million of them are children. On the flip side of that, we've got something in the order of 18 million empty homes. We don't have shortages, we have distribution problems. And there's no excuse for the wealthiest nation this planet has ever seen to have people who are homeless and desperate. It would actually be cheaper to house these people than it is to leave them desperate and let them take advantage of the services that are currently available to people in those desperate straits. We can get in front of the mental health issues that Reagan caused in the 80s. We dispatched people for mental health issues and turned a million people into homeless. The housing crisis is predicated on 2 significant issues. 1, wages have failed to keep up with productivity and inflation. The other side is we have a 50,000-page tax code that incentivizes the purchase of property as an investment. So now we have wealthy people who have many, many homes, and we have average people who have no home at all. There are 7 things that I want to see codified into a new Bill of Rights: power, water, internet, housing, healthcare, education, and voting. And we start with housing. People need a safe place so they can prosper. Going to shelters leaves you open for drug use, abuse, theft. It breaks your rhythms. If you're trying to find some place to eat, some place to sleep, sometimes you have to get one. And these are desperate people right here in our community. Just a few weeks ago, I was sitting down in Java Jungle downtown, and there was a gentleman that was outside who introduced himself as Andy, 25-ish years of age, trying to get back to Seattle. He'd slept outside that night, and he was hungry. So I fed him, gave him some power bars, and coffee, and some cash. We chatted for a little bit. His goal, his ambition, was to save up enough money to be able to buy a used SUV, so he would have transportation and housing. That's what this man aspires to. This is what we've come to. When 65% of Americans couldn't afford a $1,000 emergency, homelessness of this magnitude, and yet we're the wealthiest body this planet has ever seen. It is time to address this guilt and do something about it.
Dr. Allman, response?
He's touched on one of the things that is crucial to America: income inequality. We have the poorest people who can't even afford to buy an apartment. They can't get into someplace to live. If they can't get into someplace to live, they don't have a place where they can shower and get ready for work. So we hurt ourselves multiple times, and we don't do what this country should be doing. The country is responsible to the citizens, and yet they're not doing their duty. You need to provide housing. Rick mentioned an excellent point. In Utah, they decided that we're going to put these people into housing, and they did it. And it ends up being cheaper to rent these homes for the homeless than it is to put them into shelters. They actually have more pride in what they do. They actually have a sense of belonging to our society. They're not on the fringe anymore. But there's other people that live homeless because they can't figure out how to get their act together. One of the things that's missing in this country is mental health care. Remember that topic that I mentioned, Fed Med? What is one of the specialties that we would suddenly have rise? 90% of the homeless are thought to have mental health issues. 60% of the people in prison have mental health issues. If we can address those, We can help with homelessness, and we can help people to get back into mainstream society. We want to have more Americans benefiting from the American dream. It's been far too long that we only worry about profit. It's time that we actually think about our citizens.
Dr. How do you get the, Dr. How do you get the bring up the next topic?
Jobs. So, what are the three things that every American is going to want to have at some point in their life? They want education, they want healthcare, and jobs. You have to have income so that you have not only, you need to have a job, not only for the income and the money that you can exist on, but there's more to work than just getting money. It's a livelihood. It's interaction with society. It's proof that you have work. People get their work from their jobs, and yet we have people that are thrown out of their jobs multiple times. So we have Trump who is espousing that, oh, we're going to bring back coal. We're going to bring back coal. He's trying to revive dead issues. He's trying to revive the buggy whip maker. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, and yet that's what he proposes. It's time that we get serious about creating jobs, and that goes back to education. Because without education, you are not going to be able to do the high-tech jobs that are coming. We need to start doing better training. So with better education, we're going to have better jobs. We need to look at, in addition to those really smart people working and getting their education, there's a lot of people that are not going to do that. We need to have more jobs. We need to have better training through the unions. The unions can pick up the slack, and they could do a lot of training and help people to have careers instead of just minimum wage jobs. It's time that we actually do something for the citizens instead of just talking about it. It's time that we actually do something to make so that we equalize that pay situation. One of the things I discussed with FedMed, no more insurance. So everybody is now going to have that opportunity to have health care no matter what their job is. Currently, far too many people stay stuck in a job to maintain their health insurance. They hate the job. Entrepreneurs don't go on to their own private business because they have to have health care. Let's give them health care. Let them do whatever they want. Additionally, I mentioned that before, but FedMed could be a great hiring place for young people. They suffer the worst of any group for unemployment. We have to get serious. We have to address all of the problems, not just some of the problems. If you have this wonderful plan that incorporates all these, how could it fail? We have to have situations that are win-win-win for red, white, and blue. And I think that if you look at some of the plans and ideas I have, you'll see that that's what I want to do.
Mr. Shepherd, thoughts on that?
So wages,
Next topic.
the next topic. So obviously piggybacking off the whole thing. Wages are a concern until we realize that eventually we have to get beyond the notion of wages. From Nobel Prize winning economists to Noam Chomsky to Elon Musk and Richard Branson, all the geniuses in the room have agreed that eventually we're going to have to accept that the robots are going to take our jobs and we're going to move to a universal basic income. That's where we're going to end up. If you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he eats for his lifetime. But what happens when the robot does the fishing? Who eats? Nobody? Or everybody? We're going to have to appreciate that this is the world we're coming into. We're going to have to provide basic income as part of the social safety net. And then when we do a good enough job at that, we'll not have to worry about minimum wage because we'll have lifted people up through Maslow's hierarchy of needs through the basic income and provided those fundamentals that have powered the water, the internet, housing, healthcare, education, voting. Once you can rely upon those things, once you know that they're there and you never want for it, you never have to go seek it help, you can do some great things. Your mind can be freed up to go do more expansive, more deliberate, more thoughtful things. Because you're not desperate, you're not hungry, you're not sick. These things keep you from reaching your potential. If we are going to do our job as leaders, we have to provide you with the tools and the environment to allow you to be what you want to be. And that involves providing you with a foundation upon which you can stand, a floor beneath which you cannot fall, so that you can build something bigger than what you did.
Dr. Owen, any response?
Wages. So we do not have living wages. Currently, the media talks about we do not have any unemployment. We may not have unemployment, but we don't have people that are earning a real living. It's time that we start to look at getting those people their real living wage. We cannot continue to do what we're doing and keeping a perpetual poor society. We cannot do it. We have to do something. The establishment of a minimum wage, that's not a living wage. We need to do something bigger and better than that. With Fred Men, we've gotten rid of the insurance. So now, if you don't have to worry about that, now you can become your own entrepreneur. You can change jobs. And you know what? Businesses would be required to pay more because otherwise they are not going to keep their employees. And so the point of a minimum wage would disappear. But again, we go back to those other two issues. Education. Without education, we're not going to be able to get those jobs. One of the things that we have to look at is, as Rick said, we need to look into the future. What jobs are going to be available in 5 to 10 years? We can't count on going back to the coal mines. Those jobs are gone. It's time to be tech savvy and support STEM. We need to get with technology. We need to understand how to make the future work.
Have we covered the 3 issues?
Those are our 3 issues.
We have.
Okay. I want to give these guys a hand. There's some great things I'm excited about. After the adult part where I ask some questions. That's it. You know, the biggest challenge in CD2 is not that the Democratic ideas aren't better than the Republican ideas in my mind. It's that some of them are just a whole bunch more of those registered Republicans. And now a big swath of folks have crept up to categorize themselves as not affiliated with either party, either the two main parties. Matter of fact, that rate has creeped up to, I think, 28%, maybe 29% in the district. And so this is a major challenge. So I ask you, as I was asked in my last campaign, what is your path to victory for a Democratic CD2? Sure, I'll give you an opportunity.
Thank you. So in CD2, there's about 130,000 Democrats, about 136,000 Republicans. You're looking at something in the neighborhood of 86,000 other. So there's 19 parties in Nevada, not including others, that would be 20. Those individuals that are not affiliated with either of the major parties, they're the ones who have recognized that both of the parties are not living up to our expectations. They recognize the fraud, the corporatism, the idea that they're both sides, two sides of the same corporate coin, and they've chosen their own path. The greatest thing about that is they have self-identified as people who are issues-oriented. You want to talk to that 86,000 voter base that is CD2? You talk to them about healthcare. You talk to them about housing. You talk to them about the myriad issues that are facing us, and they listen and respond. They don't like platitudes. They don't like being spoken down to, and they're not interested in someone that's going to reach across or generate or any of these other platitudes. Nothing soft, nothing syrupy. They want specifics. You want to talk about gerrymandering, about tax evasion, about campaign finance reform. These are things they have thoughts and opinions on, and if you come at them with the right ideas, they respond to it. They respond quickly and well. I've had nothing but wonderful experiences in every rural county that I've been to. There have been, there was a young woman who was 20 years of age who had never registered to vote. She was my waitress at a restaurant in Austin, and I ran out to the trunk of my car and grabbed a voter registration form, and I got her to register as a nonpartisan, which for Austin, I consider that a huge win. So, I get to register a new citizen next week. That's going to be fun. It's going to be the first. So, those are, the path to victory is to stick to the issues and have a plan, which is, so, thank you.
Dr. Rollins.
So the path to victory is to get those people that are undecided to realize they don't have a choice until the general election. We need to get them involved in the parties. Currently, some people perceive that the parties are so extreme. If you look at a bell curve, you have one side, a big bump in the middle, that's all those middle people, and then a bump on the other side. In medicine, that big bump in the middle, that's normal. And the other two ends, that's illness. In politics, we now have such polarized party politicians, they cannot come to the center to agree on anything. To win this district, I apologize to you, but we're going to have to come to the center. We're going to have to be able to represent the red and the blue, not just the blue interests. We need to make people understand that we're not doing this just for our party, we're doing this for Nevada. That is what has to be emphasized over and over. One of the issues that's going on right now is we have an extreme partisan politician who's occupying my seat in Washington. He will only vote the party line. He never has his own opinion unless it's given to him. He's one of those people that we need to get out. We need to get people with ideas. We need to get people with ideas that are going to appeal to all Nevadans, not just to the red guys, the blue guys. We need to appeal to everybody. We need to start telling people that if they do not register for a party, they are going to miss the opportunity to choose who the candidate will be in November. We need to get people to understand, join the party. Help us make the decisions on what we should be talking about. We are not doing it. We're too partisan polarized. It is time to bring that together. We need a leader who is going to bring the people together. That's why I hope that you'll start to look at our campaign and start to realize that to win this district, we cannot appeal just to the blue. We have to appeal to the red, white, and blue. That united we stand. Too many people forget that divided we fell. We fell because we divided between the Bernieites and the Clintonites. We failed because we split our own party and made so that people were so angry that they couldn't come together. We need to reverse that. We need to get people to understand that we are one society and we need to work together.
I want to go down to a thorny issue here. I will ask you to nod and agree with if it's true. I believe that all of us on the stage believe that we need to get money out of politics. That said, nobody's won a campaign without money. So, what is the plan, your campaign plan, for attracting funds enough to win this election against the Republican?
Grassroots activism, door knocking, phone banking, canvassing, the usual routes are always, they're the foundation. You got to start with that, and it works well. We have received donations via Active Move from as far away as Miami and Seattle. There are so many great organizations out there. Justice Democrats, Friend of Congress, Our Revolution. These groups are galvanizing and motivating, and they're independent. They're not beholden to any party or any party interest. They have their own agendas, and if your politics align with their policies, then they will help you. And we have seen time and again, over the last 90 days, Our Revolution candidates have won 17 times, lost 0. That's one heck of a track record. That's not something I can look at and dismiss, and I wouldn't want to. So, these are the groups that are going to have the biggest sway, getting the progressives, the millennials, the Bernicrats, the youth, whatever you want to call that group, getting those people motivated. They're looking at these organizations for leadership. They're also joining unions in record numbers, so having the unions on your side is a big piece of the equation. You young ones are starting to join unions. But hopefully, if we get some legislation that would give right to work states, will make it a little easier for you. This is good. So, going on, canvass, phone bank, groups, and then stimulation.
Regarding money in the cd2 race for this cycle?
So one of the things that I'm going to point out to people is, it's a trite saying, but it's true. We have a candidate on the other side of the political fence who is the best government that money can buy. Point that out to people. Point that out to people over and over and over. How I want to combat that. I'm not independent of wealthy. I don't have a lot of rich donors that are trying to get me to do something for them. I wouldn't accept the money anyway. But what we need to do is exactly what we're doing here. We need to have spots where people can come and listen to the issues, see if they agree with us, find out which candidate they actually do agree with. We need to get our names up. That was the intent of this whole issue. Let's have debates. Let's get our names out there. Let's point out to people that this coming election is going to be a referendum on Trump politics. We're going to get the independents to say, you know what, I don't think that Mr. Trump is a very good guy. I think I'm going to vote for the other team. And galvanize them and get them to understand that if they don't help us, they will fail again. Again, we go back to united we stand, divided we fall. We keep emphasizing that over and over. We keep emphasizing, do you like the way that the government is moving? Do you like the direction that we're moving? Do you think that the ethics and morality of the United States is being held high? Or do you think it's slipping out of our hands? It's time for Americans to take back their government. The quickest way to do that is get Congress. By taking Congress, both the House of Representatives and the Senate, you neuter Mr. Trump. He has no power. This is how we have to do it. So I mentioned that we're going to have these events. Convince your friends. You need to talk to this person. You need to follow this person. You need to look up what he stands for. Social media. Again, Mr. Trump used it very effectively with the help of another country. Oh yeah, Russia. So it's time for us to do our own. We have the capability. It's time for us to step up and use it. It's an effective tool. We have to get our names out there so we get name recognition. We have to use social media. It takes no money, very little money, and you get your message out to a lot of people. That is what has to happen. And excite people. That's also what has to happen. Excite people, make them understand that they are in charge of their future, that they have to get out and vote, that they have to make a change, and that if they don't do it at the primary, they're going to miss their chance on real choice. That's how I think we're going to win this election.
I'm going to throw us into an imaginary real world. The imaginary world is that you've been elected to represent Northern Nevada in Congress. And the real world is you're up there right now discussing guns. Okay, now, two parts of the question. One is, what would you be doing right now in Congress about the gun issue? And second, what would you leave to the states to be doing about gun issues? So, Mr. Shepherd, I'll give you the opportunity to answer that.
Okay. So, obviously, gun violence is in the news, and rightfully so. California passed some legislation, and for about 10 years we saw a big decrease in gun-related issues. I think we should definitely take a look at that legislation and see what we can do to make that a federal concern. I do have concerns about it in that it sounds like it was written to include all semi-automatic weapons, which would include handguns and myriad other weapons that were never intended to be wrapped up in this. So my concern is that it could be too overreaching and ineffective. That's why we need to look at it. But it definitely had an impact, and we should study that, just like we should study so many other things, but we can't because the CDC is not allowed. So as your representative, one of the things I would push for was to get research dollars and permission to use them so that we can find out exactly how guns and gun violence are acting. Instant background checks are obvious. Bump stocks should have never been allowed. You can blame Obama for that one. It was his choice. Anything that modifies a semi-automatic to an automatic weapon is clearly off the table. But we do have to be careful about the idea if we're going to say we want to ban assault weapons, we have to identify what they are. If you take an AR-15, for example, it comes in a half a dozen different configurations. So you have to cover all of the variables. Usually they come in like either a 223 or 7.62 millimeter. Standard rounds, so you can't say no, you can't have that kind of ammunition. Semi-automatic is normal, it's ubiquitous, so you can't block them from that. At that point, we start getting into pistol grips and collapsible stocks and other such decorations and tinsel that they don't affect the weapon's abilities. They don't change muzzle velocity, they don't change penetration, they don't change its rate of fire. And if you're concerned about the gun we have to identify the aspect that we want to control, because there's too many variables that we could cheat if we were not careful, and we could eliminate people's rights to have weapons that are not assault weapons if we don't phrase it right. So those are concerns that I would put forward. Instant background checks is an obvious thing. We said yes to that in November. In fact, it's not in place right now. It's stacking. There's no excuse for that. That should be a national concern. As far as what the states should do, the states, I don't like the idea of reciprocity from the states with respect to concealed carry, because it's a race to the bottom. Whichever of the 50 states has the weakest gun laws becomes the default for the nation, and that's not how we're going to do things. So if we're going to leave things up to the states, it's not going to be reciprocity, gun control, but it could be, I would like to see the states responsible for sending their information about their mental health to the federal database so that we can have a unified body of information, so we know if someone's sick, if someone's a danger. And while we're doing this, I'm done. I'm on.
Dr. Hall, Congressman Hall in this case.
Gun control. Well, heck, the NRA said you get your position to the chest, one of the head, that's gun control. That's not gun control. We need to have gun control. We need to have sane gun control. I would push that we have that wonderful thing of background checks. It could have presented the last 2 killings. So the man who had mental health issues, and yet he was still able to go ahead and buy guns. We had the guy that there was a slip up and they didn't notice that he had been a domestic abuser. And so, again, he made it through and he got guns. We need to ensure that background checks are actually done. So that's step 1. And that would be a federal law. And it would go through and we would make sure that it happens. So what else needs to be done? At the state level, I would license anybody who wants to shoot a gun. I want to know that they are capable of actually holding and operating a firearm. I want to know that they understand the safety that is required to carry a firearm. I want to know that they actually know what they can do and that they understand the power of a firearm. I want the NRA to go back and do what their original mission was. It was to train people to shoot. It was to train people how to operate a firearm safely and effectively. That's something that they should be doing. If you want to operate a firearm, that's fine. But if you're in one of the groups that can't buy a firearm, I don't want you to be able to do that. And so I would want to make, you don't get a license, essentially. We might also consider, you know what, you have to have insurance. If you have a firearm, you're going to have a $1 million policy, and you have to pay for it. And so there's things that we can do. There's ideas thinking outside the box that people aren't paying attention to. But we're just keeping going on along, and we've divided our own party, and we've split people away from our party by taking what is often an emotional issue and making it, oh, it's a constitutional issue. We have rational people who have decided at the state level, at the national level, that we need to have common sense law, and yet they're ignored. We have a governor and a attorney general who's flatly ignoring the law. It's time to challenge him in courts. It's time to go after him and say, you have to follow the law. Even if you're the governor, you're still required to follow the law of the land. We need to be creative. We need to follow common sense things. We need to appeal to all of the people in Nevada. I don't want their guns. I've got guns. I don't want your guns. We need to make sure that people understand that we're not going to take their guns.
So members of the audience, I've got one more question to ask each of the candidates here, and hopefully you're preparing your questions, we can go through right after that. So, Representative, the Democrats have won the majority. The House Majority Leader has appointed you to the Intelligence Committee, and you're confronted with all the evidence that is currently available about Mr. Trump, Trump's agenda. Okay. What would you be focusing on now or asking the committee to focus on?
Well, first we have to preface that we don't know nearly as much as most. So, working off the assumption that the only thing to know is what we know now, it does appear that Donald Trump has spent many years laundering Russian mob money through casinos and through property deals. It does appear that his leadership is full of people who have questionable relationships with Russian properties, the Russian government, the Russian mafia. There's certainly room for concern. There's 3 different agencies, 17 sub-agencies, seem to all agree that the elections were interfered with directly by the Russians. In what capacity, I would like to know. And did they actually flip a vote? Or was this a matter of just opposition research and some Facebook ads? How far did they go? And we need to secure our election systems. We can't trust electronic voting. Blockchain technology is not ready to still vote on vulnerable to civil attacks. So we're going to do paper ballots. We have to have paper ballots in rooms counted by lots of people that don't trust each other because there's nothing else that we can rely on. And if we are going to do that, we should also recognize hypocrites. Because America has meddled in the elections of every nation in South America and half of the Middle East. We have toppled democratically elected governments and imposed dictators. We have caused civil wars, and then we have ignored the refugees that were the result of the damage that we've released. So if we want to have free, fair, and honest, open elections, but let's also take a little stock in our behavior because we're doing the same thing with other countries that we're accusing Russia of ourselves.
Congressman Hall, member of the House Intelligence Committee, your concerns about Mr. Trump.
So, one of the first things that I would consider is impeaching our president. Because you know what? With the evidence that he brought up in the campaign, that Hillary knew that Benghazi was a problem, she failed to do anything about it. We have the evidence sitting in front of us. Mr. Trump, you have committed treason. You have used the other country's intelligence, the other country's service to become elected, and you have gone so far as to not do any sanctions against them. So, Mr. Trump, we are going to impose sanctions on Russia, and we are going to start an impeachment process. Because if nothing else, you've now done things to impede the investigation. Again, that is a crime punishable by the United States Constitution. The man is treasonous and we're letting him go. That is why we need to get into power and remove any power he has. And truly, the impeachment process should be started. The man is absolutely treasonous. He has taken advantage of the United States, not for the citizens, not to benefit this country, but for his own personal power. He has done things against the United States. It's not imaginary. They're there. He has gone against the wishes of the United States people. He has gone against the security of the United States people. He has done so many things. It is time to go after him. We need to build confidence in our government. He has taken that away, and that is exactly what the Russians wanted to do. Divide and conquer. If you're a good secret agent, you're going to go and make so that the people distrust their government. That is what Trump is doing on a daily basis. Fake news. Oh, don't listen to the judicial branch because they're all against me. He's done it time and time again. He is trying to disrupt the United States. He's playing into the hands of the Russians for his own benefit. And he's not recognizing what he's doing to the American people. We need to go after him. We need to make people understand that he has hurt the American people. He's now going after the people in my committee. He's going after the intelligence community. He's trying to say that don't trust them, don't trust them. Why? He's trying to cover his own tracks. It's time that we stand up. And if I was on the intelligence committee, I would be going after him aggressively. And I would make sure that he pays for the things that he's done.
One last question for me, and that's that whoever represents cd2, and actually for all of our congressional representation from Nevada, there are two issues that really don't resonate very largely with the rest of the country. One of them is Yucca Mountain. The other is public lands. I want to give each of you about 3 minutes to address those issues. And I'll start with you.
Okay, Shepard. Yucca Mountain's back in the news because 49 other states think they're garbage dump before they're even fairways. There's nothing new to this discussion for the two gentlemen up here. They've both heard this rap before. But liquid fluoride thorium reactors are a technology that we developed and put in place in the 1960s. We've done this, we know what it's about, and we're good at it. And with this tech, we can get rid of that 71,000 tons of radioactive waste that they want to send to Yucca. We can deplete it, we can eliminate it and turn it into green watts and a couple of byproducts that actually have commercial value. This solution had been in front of us for decades and we've not pursued it because the bad idea that we did choose was the path for building weapons. The answer to Yucca Mountain lies in Oak Ridge National Labs. It lies in liquid fluoride thorium reactors and consuming that energy, so it's not a threat to us anymore. As far as public lands go, it's probably no surprise to anyone in this room that Amidate had a desire to bring an enormous chunk of government land and turn it over to the state. It's a terrible idea for a handful of reasons, so I'm going to give you a couple of them. First off, the Nevada State Constitution says that all of that land is forever, and it uses that word, the property of the U.S. government, which also means it's their responsibility. Everything from weeds to fires to every manner of invasive wildlife, that's all mitigated to the tune of some $30 million a year. And if those lands were to come to Nevada, Sandoval's already said he can't and won't pay to maintain those lands. So we either leave it going fallow, or we sell it out to the highest bidder, which is, of course, the agenda. If you want to take care of the checkerboard, I'm willing to have that conversation. That's a reasonable bid that I could see transferring over, just like we've done for municipals, everything from Reno and Sparks and Las Vegas. They have methods for 150 years of taking small amounts of land and incorporating them into public and then ultimately private use. We can do the same thing with the checkerboard. But as far as transferring enormous swaths of land, it's against our own constitution and it's against our own fiscal best interest to do so.
I'm going to go backwards. So the public lands issue. Public lands. The public lands in Nevada within our state border do not belong to the state. They belong to the federal government. The state was created from federal land. That is something that we need to understand. That federal land is owned by 324 million people. It's not owned by us in Nevada. It's partially owned by us. We don't get to decide and take that land from everyone else in this country. It's the United States government's land. We need to respect that. We can ask for some of that land. We can use some of that land and gradually turn some back to the state and private uses. He's right about Mark Amidate. He wants to take that public land and turn it into private land. By giving it back to the state will be forced to sell it off as quickly as possible. And the state is going to sell it to mining industry. And they're going to do it not in an environmentally sound way. They're going to do it in whatever way is the cheapest to use up that land. We need to recognize that the public lands are the public common use areas. One way that we could get some of those independents back on our team. Let's tell them that if you're a hunter and we get rid of public lands, where are you going to go get your elk? You're going to go to a private reserve and you're going to spend $5,000 to get your elk. You know what? You'll suddenly have a bunch of people join in the blue team saying, no, you will not take my public hunting area. No, I do not want to have that. Not just the hunters, but also the people that are skiers, the people that want to go on the dunes, all of the public lands that people actually recognize how they're used. We need to fight people like Bundy, who thinks that, well, I'm more important than the rest of the people in the country. I think that I should be able to do whatever I want to with all of the lands. I want to use it, I'm close to it, it's mine. It's not his. The public lands are for the common good. Now let's address Yucca Mountain. Sadly, we have radioactive waste around the country. We do not have time to build liquid chlorine reactors. We don't have time to do that. We do need to store that stuff. It's time that Nevada says, you know what, we are going to take one for the team. We need to look at it, and we need to look at it as scientists and responsible individuals and say, we want to do what's right for this country. The people that are close to Yucca Mountain, they're in favor of having Yucca Mountain as a nuclear repository. My county wants to have the nuclear repository. They live there. We need to understand that scientifically, we need to place this radioactive material someplace. This is the best place to do it. That's why I was chosen by Senator Reid in the first place. It's time to do the right thing, not what's emotional.
Join me in thanking our candidates for the answers. Now it's your turn. I'm going to ask you if you have a question to stand up and then speak loudly so both fans and I
I
can hear
can't
you.
hear, so talk really, really loud.
Yes, please.
So let's take a hypothetical a little farther. You're in Congress, we had a blue wave, 51% of each house. And what is you have great ideas, but what's your first proposals, maybe incremental, around what you've talked about, healthcare, housing, jobs, education, that can get the 2/3 veto-proof majority against President Pence?
Chuck, I'll just take that first.
Okay, so here's what's going to happen. The enormous blue wave, we take over the House, we take over the Senate. The remaining Republicans are going to be the senators who weren't up for re-election, and maybe a handful of moderates that managed to eke out a win, although I'm not convinced that any of them will. After the blue wave, I call it the blue mountain, completes, the remaining Republicans will suddenly find their centrist base. And they will become much more amenable to the idea of reaching across the aisle and then reaching a consensus because they recognize that this wave may not be over and they are going to have to be re-elected at some point. During that time, we will put them to task just like we did with Nixon. Nixon gave us the EPA when he had a democratically controlled House and Senate and a scared Republican Party. We're going to do the same thing to get Medicare for all. Trump's going to sign Medicare for all, and then we're going to introduce it.
Not wrong. Your response to that question.
He's right. Medical care is the most important issue facing Americans today. Most of the politicians 4 years ago could care less about medical care. It was a done deal. We didn't need to do anything. We got the Affordable Care Act. Sadly, it hasn't panned out the way that it was supposed to. There were supposed to be minimal increases in your insurance costs. Insurance prices have gone through the roof. It's time that we get medical care for a healthy society. I phrase it different. Does it make a difference? Is it socialized medicine? Yeah, it's socialized medicine. But it still brings home the point that we need to have health care for our citizens to improve their life. By doing so, if we used Medicare for all, you're going to see the richest hospitals, insurance companies, and doctors. And we're just going to ratchet up the prices because there's going to be no control. Uncle Sam is paying for it. Keep raising the price. But if you have a federal system in place that is actually providing that care, you cut out the administration costs, you cut out the profit costs, you cut out the cost of insurance, you make this economy boom. Because I'm going to put $6,000 in every person who's paying for their health care. That's the average price that the citizens pay for health care, for their health care insurance, sorry. We're also going to make business boom. We worry about growth of, oh, let's get it up to 3%. I've now given every business that is paying for healthcare insurance $12,000 per employee. What are they going to do? They're going to ship it overseas? No. They're going to be paying it to the stockholders. They're going to be paying to invest in their corporations. They're going to be paying it to their employees who are going to demand living wages. Otherwise, they walk to a job that will give them a living wage because they no longer have to worry about where their health care is coming from. They don't have to stay in this one spot, this crappy job that doesn't offer them real wages, but it does have health care. I'm going to get people employed because you know what? There's a lot of people that sit out there, they're on Medicaid, and they're afraid to go back to work because they'll lose their health care benefit. We need to make so they don't have to worry about If you have a good job, you don't have to worry about your healthcare costs. That is the single most important issue there is. And I've only touched on the costs. We have never addressed in the current society, well, what about the inequality in access, because in a rural area there aren't any doctors, there's no hospitals, there's nothing. FedMed would fix all of those problems, including educating more doctors. That's the first thing that I would do. That's why I'm running for Congress, because a congressman is the one who introduces that legislation. I want to be that person that introduces that legislation.
Okay, another question. Please, Gail.
Yeah, we have a student loan crisis in this country right now. We have young people who, for lack of funds, are not able sometimes even to make the payments, are paying just interest on some of these loans because they don't have good enough jobs to be able to afford to pay for the student loans. And many of these people who are paying student loans are paralyzed because they cannot buy homes, they cannot start families, they cannot purchase cars because they're overwhelmed with the student loans and their wages aren't going up. So, what do you plan on doing about this if you are elected?
I'll let you answer first this question.
Okay. So remember that plan that I had? I want to give free education to everybody. But they've already finished their education. So I'll make a deal with them. I'm going to forgive your loan if you work for the federal government for 2 years. I'm going to allow you to get your loans paid off. Well, I don't want to do that. Well, Obama, he already put something into place that was trying to decrease the cost on people that could not afford it. It's not taken advantage of because people don't know about these programs. We don't get the information out. We don't have enough public service information spots anymore. I remember as a kid, they were on all the time. We have to get the information out to the people. We have to do a better job of educating them about what's available for their education. But first and foremost, we need to put the money where our mouth is. We need to invest in our future. Education is the best way to do it. I'm a great example. I mentioned that I was on Social Security when I was a kid. So what was the outlet for a kid on Social Security? How are you going to pay for school? I didn't know. And so I went into the military, got the GI Bill, went back to college. Okay, now what do I do? So I didn't get into medical school the first time, so I went into the military again. But education got me into being an officer instead of just, the pay was better, so that was kind of nice. I got a college degree that I could use for teaching or whatever I needed to do, or I could get into medical school. And then medical school, that ticket, so the education, again, that's another quantum leap up. I've taken advantage of the education system to improve the lot of somebody that was the son of a bartender. And I turned it into, I'm a doctor now, and I'm pretty happy with that. We need to make that available to everybody. I mentioned again that we're going to have this for your undergraduate. But what about all those people that go through medical school? They are getting loans that are approaching $250,000 before they finish medical school. Again, FedMed. I'm going to pay for your medical school, get enough doctors in the right specialties to work out in all the different places that we have. I'm going to use your need and give you a benefit for performing services for the federal government. I think that that's a fair trade-off. I think that's a good investment. That's a wise investment for our taxpayers and for all of our citizens who want to succeed.
Mr. Shepard, current student debt.
After the financial crisis of 2008, it was determined that quantitative easing would be the right answer to get the banks back on track. We over $1 trillion handed out, and it was little more than a ledger entry. There was nothing but ones and zeros on computers that were created out of paper, and magically the problem was solved. Every one of those banks on Wall Street are every bit as big and strong as they ever were, and bigger. Clearly it works. If we can bail out Wall Street, we can bail out students. There's no reason why $1 trillion of Wall Street is special versus $1 trillion to student loans. If we can wipe out the debt and let the people responsible for the problem made whole and walk away without so much as one person having a ticket, let alone seeing time. If we can do that, there's no excuse for us not to take care of the education. The fact that it's all Reagan's fault. He's the one that screwed up education. We used to have in-state colleges, universities were tuition-free up until now. Right? You could still pay for private school, but even then it was easily done. You could get a summer job to pay for your Stanford tuition. Now you'd have to have a full-time gig to pay for part of your Stanford tuition. There's no reason why the institutions can't afford this. Most of the big universities have fantastic endowments already. They're more than capable of addressing it themselves. And even if there has to be funds put in, it will be something that we, the people, will decide to do. We will determine who needs the funds, and we can start putting forward funds for things like vocational training. We can give people the education that they want instead of forcing them to go through a career path at university level that might not be applicable. If you want to be a welder or a mechanic or an artist or anything that's outside of STEM, you might be better served going through a vocational school. And you shouldn't have to go out of pocket for that either. I want you, day one, with a degree, no debt, out there making it work. That's how we're going to make it a better tomorrow.
You have a question?
I'd like to get your response to a broad criticism of the overall political structure and system in this country. It goes something like this. Both parties are at fault. There are significant issues that have not been resolved. One of the reasons that they have not been resolved is that it's kind of a perpetuation of power among both Democrats and Republicans. That the leadership or the who's in control of a given chamber may shift and change, and likewise that will happen with the White House. But there are significant things that remain unresolved because there's not really a genuine commitment to reform, in part because politicians perpetuate politicians. One, is that true of the Democratic Party as you see it? And if it is, what's the solution to that?
Shep, I think you have questions.
Corporatist establishment politicians are the same, irrespective of the jersey they're wearing. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, they're going to do the will of their donors. And you need to look no further than that. It is not more complicated or difficult. Sadly, it's all about the money. If there's an issue that you don't think is getting addressed, look at that person's donor record and it will be made abundantly clear. And unfortunately, we in our own ranks here as Democrats have some issues to address. I will give you a couple of examples. Cory Booker was in half of the drug deportation bill. He said no to that. There's no rational reason. He gave an excuse. It was just that. And it was clearly a favor to the pharmaceutical lobbies that came so handsomely to what he does in New Jersey. And instead of taking care of all of New Jersey, he decided to take care of a few hundred individuals that came with very little money. We would not tolerate this from a Republican. We would call this behavior out from anyone outside of our own ranks, but because they were in New Jersey, we tend to turn a blind eye. And if Medicare for all, or universal health care, or whatever your version of that, whatever your future that disintegrates insurance companies, if that's important to you, if that's a thing that if you're a single issue voter and that's your one, Cory Booker's worthless to you. He's just as worthless as any Republican you can take. And there are numerous others that are just as bad. And they're different issues for different ones, but they fail. They fail, and we let them do it. That's our fault. We've been lazy. We let Obama take us from 2 wars to 7 with a Nobel Peace Prize hanging around his neck. We would never have tolerated that from a Republican. Never. But because it was our team, we accepted it. So,
So you kind of hit on it. We have the corporate politician. We need to get rid of the corporate politician. We need to get rid of the funding that that corporate politician stays in office. We need to convince people that instead of just buying into, well, my party says, we need to get rid of the idea of the emperor's new clothes. Despite we have our senses and we can think and we can see what's going on, we just blindly say, well, yes, he says that it's true and therefore it's true. We need to start responding and thinking outside of the dogma of the political parties. We need to start looking at what's best for the people of this country. This country wasn't founded by two political parties. It was founded by people. We need to place the emphasis on the people and the citizens. We could consider what a lot of European countries do. We could have multiple different parties so that they actually represent each group. That would not work well for our nation. It doesn't serve most of those countries very well. We need to understand that there is one side and the other. But we need to make sure that that one side against the other is close together and they're doing what's right for the country, not what's right for the party. I mentioned before the bell curve. Again, in healthcare, the middle is the norm. And the extremes that's illness. And yet in politics, we continue to have this partisan politics. And you're right, the pendulum swings one way, and then it swings all the way to the extreme on the other side. Let's stop that pendulum in the middle. Let's do what's right for all of the people. Let's not disintegrate into groups. Let's not disintegrate into it's us versus them. Let's think of win-win situations, not a win-lose situation. Currently, that's what we focus on. Part of it might be that most of our politicians are lawyers. They're taught to win at all costs. Maybe we need more doctors in there. I go for the best solution. If it doesn't work, I go on to the next best solution, and the next, and the next. And I keep trying until we reach a good, solid conclusion that is beneficial to both parties. We need to look at what's going to benefit all of the people, not just separate groups. We need to link ourselves together and say, we are in this together. We cannot do what the Russians wanted to do. Let's split us all apart. And when they are fighting against each other, then we'll follow up and we'll fight them too. We need to work on unity and get rid of the division that President Trump is spreading. We need to work together to make America a better place. We were great already, but we can still become better. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Good question. Please stand.
Yes, thank you very much. Now, I start with wages. Well, revenue talked about that. Main reasons is wages aren't going up as staff would consider this. When they do, employers are going to seek ways to say, to give it out by wages, and they'll do that. And that's why raising wages may really need. But about gun control, this is subject, but didn't Donald Trump say in the early campaign days, he said, my greatest dreams were to decide when nobody had any weapons? I read that in a magazine, I don't know what he said. And I live in Europe a lot too, and there's some ways, other ways that America really got this gas. So, big economy, with all these exorbitant prices on food, it should be controlled. We have the people, the people, when these prices are controlled, the people sure. And about having everybody in the same insurance policy, everybody under one insurance policy. Insurance costs the American citizens $30 billion a year. And there's a lot of other additional costs that we're paying that we have to have the insurance companies to take. Now, then you talk about doing away with it. Okay, 86 countries have insurance plan, health insurance coverage that is come to be is the better plan. America has no plan.
What question would you like them to respond to?
What?
Is there a specific question?
Thank you. In consideration of this question, this very good question. I guess it's more of a commentary, but to go after the system today, you can't just present it in a whole different plan. What, you must start at the bottom and work toward this change that
have to start someplace. So where do you start? And to make these bold plans and say that let's just revamp everything. Well, that's part of the problem we have. We've stayed with the status quo for such a long time that we assume that that's true. It's not working. It's not working. We have to make changes. One of those old saws is, I want to see change, but you keep doing the same behaviors over and over, you're going to get the same results. If you want to change the results, you have to change what you're doing right now. And so you ask about healthcare. I could start the process tomorrow. It doesn't have to be accomplished overnight. It can be a gradual effect. But if I wanted to have FedMed go into effect tomorrow, I open up the VA to people that are on Medicaid and Medicare. I've suddenly taken the money that's spent on them and taken it away from the private hospitals, and now it's in government control. And the government is going to keep the price down, but they're also going to be looking for getting health care. And so that's one step. I then step to step two. I start to buy hospitals. I make so that, you know what, your hospital is not doing well in rural Tonopah. They sold their hospital to Renown. They closed it for a while, and then they sold it at basement price. Why not have the federal government start to buy some of those hospitals and employ people in there? That's how you can get this accomplished. It doesn't have to occur overnight, but think big. We haven't thought of
this first, convince the people who know, the majority of people, that this is the right way, step by step. First step, what is the end result? It's the cheapest, a healthier way to do it, and it's less expensive. I've seen this, I've lived with it, it's a better way. And
So, yeah, with healthcare, I've tried to explain, I've done the research, my book isn't done, but I've done the research. We can pay for everything in healthcare, pay for the doctors, the hospitals, the medicine, the durable goods, everything for $800 billion. But we pay more because of administrative costs, because of the need for profit, and if we get rid of that, we can make this happen. And it should be something that we should look at. Again, if we stay on the same, and the biggest, best part, with the Affordable Care Act, there was a mandate that you had to get insurance. Here's a choice. If you want to continue with private care, if you want to continue with insurance, you are welcome to do that. But if you would like free, quality health care, accessed by every American, you can do it. You wouldn't have to, you don't have to.
Mr. Shepard, your response.
Actually, rolling out the universal health care is probably one of the easiest. Medicare is already ubiquitous. It's already practically universal. It's beloved, very efficient, 2% overhead. So the first step is you repeal the age restriction. That's an edit to the existing policies. And then you can start plugging the holes that are problematic. And we can address the funding side of things, as I discussed earlier. So the easiest and fastest thing is just remove the age restriction from the existing Medicare legislation. Then you can move to what Dr. Allman was saying. We can incentivize rural community resources by improving their payment schedules. If the same fee for service is going to get you a higher rate of return in areas underserved, you're creating an environment that's economically incentivized. You're going to get healthcare providers and healthcare services in areas that are underserved, and you're simply not going to achieve that through a private or a open market. That has to be done by legal. So that's how. Thank you.
So, you're sure that we shouldn't change our healthcare system?
I'm not
Because
sure of that at all.
well,
We should.
we have to change our healthcare system. People will say that we have the best, but people will say that we have the best healthcare system in the world. We have the most expensive. The naysayers, they're going to say that you can't switch to a socialized system because then you're going to have poor quality healthcare. Every one of the socialized systems in the world, they live longer than people in the United States. They have a lower infant mortality. They have quality health care, and they don't worry about the cost. We have a wonderful country, Denmark. It's the happiest country in the world. Part of the reason is they don't have to worry about healthcare, education, and jobs. They're secure. Their government takes care of them and does the right thing. They're still a capitalist society, but those three things are taken away from being a worry.
And I want to be able to move on. I will add one comment to the discussion here, and that's that universal health care puts a lot of bankruptcy lawyers out of a job. Will there be retraining? Okay.
Well, lawyers make good water tongue.
Okay, I'm going to take a couple more questions, then we're going to go to
Yeah, we can't leave real quick, so I have one.
Oh,
And then maybe just one thing that we can take on it. I'm going to make a statement, almost raise awareness, and then see what you have to say. But many people feel that one of the greatest threats to this country is the federal deficit. It doesn't seem like either the left or the right, blue or the red, has a plan. It seems like any candidate or any group or whatever, you can take that on, it's almost political suicide. And yet, I remember when I graduated from high school in 1981, or maybe 1980 that it happened, but I think we reached our first $1 trillion in federal deficit. So, people thought, oh my gosh, this guy's calling, how are we going to get it back? What do we do? Now, fast forward, I've worked like over $20 trillion, and it hasn't been very long. So the first $1 trillion took over 200 years. We're talking World War I, World War II, Vietnam, everything. And so now it's almost like the norm. When Democrats are in power, it's social spending, it's program, Republicans are in power, it's military and other things. But either way, I mean, that's spending this in the last 10 years. Charge with routinely now we've got spending $800 billion to $1 trillion every year. So, I mean, if in fact in the midterm we win this, at some point this has to be dealt with. I mean, I know that not a working program. Nobody knows for sure. Some people posit that we get $35 trillion that we have to develop now. It would be more than a recession, more than a depression, would be possibly. Yeah, but I just don't know that if I'm making a statement, and I don't know if there's a solution, but you have anything to say about that? At some point, it has to be done because you can't run a household that way. You can't run a business that way. You make $100,000 a year every single year, you have $120,000 a year. Sooner or later, the gamble breaks. So I think that.
Give you the opportunity to address the first. Thank you.
Yes.
So there's some things to unpack here, and I'll agree, but there's some good news. First off, the vast majority of this debt that you're concerned about is owned by we the people. It's in the form of public debt that we own, and we're good for. So it's not as though some other country is going to come foreclose on our debt. Governments don't run like businesses or households. Operating at deficits is not a problem. In fact, deficit spending is something that governments are supposed to do during economic downturns to spur local economies. And public debt is private profit. That's how that translates. So it's not as urgent a concern. In fact, Dick Cheney even said deficits don't matter. I don't often refer to him as being a positive light. So there's that to kind of assuage some of your concerns. But if we're going to get to the idea of actually being something that looks like fiscally responsible, universal health care will save us $1 trillion a year, according to the CDO score. That's going to put a dent in it. And if we can get ourselves off of hydrocarbon extractions and stop pretending that those foreign wars we're involved in have anything other than to do with extracting oil, that's $250 million a day that we're not spending in foreign wars. That's beyond the $700 billion in spending that goes towards the military in the first place. So if we want to get on a fiscally responsible track, we go to renewable energies, we move to my lifters, we stop extracting hydrocarbons, we stop fighting these wars, and we pay some bills.
Dr. Robbie.
So, adding to what Rick said, we agree on a lot of things, and this is one. The deficit is just a number. Remember the Y2K? Oh, everything is going to shut down. It's just a number. It's the boogeyman that we don't know what's going to happen. Oh, what's going to happen in the future? We need to look at what this country stands for. We need to look at ethics, what we stand for, the morality, what we stand for, and we need to invest so that our country's ideals are pushed forward. If our country is in a deficit right now, we anticipate that we are going to come out of that. Or we don't care. And that is something that we need to address. We need to look at what are the concerns of this country. Is the price that we're paying for health important, or is the health of our citizens important? I would vote for the latter. I don't think that the money actually makes any difference. I think that it's not a good thing that we continue to be in debt. And as Rick said, we can do better in how we utilize the money. But again, we need to look at the issues and what we're really trying to accomplish. If it's health care, that's the thing I want to concentrate on, not how much it costs. When you have private companies, they have to worry about the bottom line. The federal government, as Rick said, that is not a concern. We're going to get that back because that debt that is owed is actually owned by the people. Again, we need to understand that this is our government. It's not a foreign power that's telling us what we can and can't do. We are the ones that are controlling it. We need to take back that power. We need to make sure that we are making our government responsible to us. That's what we need to do. That's why you need to vote for a Democratic candidate this fall.
I'm going to take one more question.
Thank you very much. Thank you for addressing my question. I do appreciate it.
I'm going to take one more question from somebody who hasn't had a chance to answer questions. Then after that, the candidates will do their closing statements. So, you need my... We have to take some... Okay.
My question is, because I've been thinking about is my biggest concern is climate change. And it just seems like you never get to that topic because I know healthcare is like so huge and so on. But where do you guys stand?
And say it again because I missed the question.
Climate change.
Okay.
Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change. The environment. Oh, first up.
Okay.
So, with the environment, yes, we have not addressed it. It is something that we do have to address. If we fail to address it, we're going to all fail. The nation will fail. If you look at where people live, it is close to the coast. In every country in the world, most of the people live close to the coast. We need to address that before we suddenly have mass migration because those people are now underwater. So how do you do that? We've discussed some things, but we need leadership to actually address it. We need leadership to actually discuss real ideas that can work. Again, I'm going to use an example. Europeans have figured it out. So in 2040, after that date, you will not be able to buy a gasoline engine car. They're going electric or at minimum a hybrid. They also have high prices on the fuel. What does that do? It makes you conservative because you know what? I'm cheap. I don't want to spend $8 on a gallon of gas. We need to do things like that make sense instead of doing this, well, there's nothing I can do. I'm going to make the government do it. We need to get leadership to advise the people that it is their responsibility as well. Instead of just worrying about the mileage in your car, figure out how to do it better on less mileage. Instead of taking a trip there and then back and there and back and there and back, you do one trip that does a circle. And so you don't waste energy. You make sure that when you do use a carbon item, that it is solid and that it's going to be something that can be recycled. You don't just burn it up. It doesn't make sense. It's just thrown into the environment. We need to do things wisely and not do it emotionally. We need to do the right thing, not just grasp at an emotion. Oh, we've got to fix the climate. It's time we start doing this. In the 60s, it was Rachel Carson, I believe, and she talked about we need to fix the environment because that is our future.
I know this is a big issue for you.
Absolutely. If you go to my website and look at my issues, they're roughly in what I would consider a hierarchical order, with climate change being my number one concern. I believe that once the planet is hostile to human life, no other concern is relevant. I do put healthcare as number two, but it's easy to see how our environment and our healthcare are so intimately connected as to be effectively one. We in Nevada have the opportunities to go with wind and solar and geothermal and biomass and all manner of green energies. My molten salt reactor is the key to world peace. I genuinely believe that. And when we stop extracting those hydrocarbons, we can start sequestering carbons as well. Because if we stop right now, we're going to be 40 years before this planet balances out. And we don't have that kind of time. If we're going to get in front of this mess, we have to actually actively sequester carbon, capture it from the atmosphere, capture it from the oceans, and put it back subsurface like it used to. And we have the technology. And the good news is, ExxonMobil, Chevron, they're going to be the heroes of the green energy movement. They're the ones who are going to do the sequestration goals. What a world is going to be if the people responsible for breaking it will be the ones who fix it. It's a wonderful thing.
Emil, for the closing question from the audience.
So I'm understanding that I have a longer question. I want to congratulate both of you for tonight. It was very important points, and I'm very happy to hear the most important thing about time to both of your speeches. And I hope either of you, if you goes to Washington, picks the other guys' ideas, because they're all great. I want to congratulate you for not considering political suicide and mentioning the fact that the U.S. has been involved in other countries' election. That comes back to the deep pockets, and that could be political suicide. But I appreciate that you brought it up. Dr. Allen, I appreciate that they mentioned socialism. America has a lot of socialism. People hate that notion. Anything social is social. Medicare, Medicare are socialist ideas. People hate that concept. Please continue to promote that because you're also educators. Now, your ideas could be found in Senate.gov, anywhere on the government websites. They have been on the table for many generations. However, people get very energized going to Washington with these ideas, but somehow they find a needle there that deflates them. That makes sense? How are we going to fight big money and big lobbies who are going to be against your free education, healthcare, housing, jobs, and wages? What's new that you're going to bring in your tactic? Is it tactical in Washington?
Shepard, you get the first response.
It's a numbers game. Political will.
I'm an analyst. I love it.
Political will comes from your representatives. If you're not seeing the results, it's because you've elected the wrong people. That's political will. That's our representative democracy. You pick someone that you think is going to take your ideas and run with them. And we've done a poor job of selecting a leader.
Yes.
I would be partial with that. A lot of people are good people. They didn't manage to get their ideas through. Harold Reed is one of them. If you look at his 30 years of activity, there has hundreds of politicians that would be denied.
That's true.
And he was a great politician. However, he could not go through. And he was also a boxer. So,
by contrast, Senator Sanders is known as the Amendment King. He founded the Progressive Caucus in the House of Representatives, which is now some 20-odd people, I think, are part of it. So that's certainly a body whose voice is demanding of interest and consideration. And once I'm elected, one of the first things I intend to do is be a part of that. So that's how you get your political will.
Dr. Altman, your response.
How I would do that? I would emphasize to the people that I want to go for one term. If I don't do well, terminate me. Send me off. Don't re-elect me. We need to start to understand that being in Washington, but not being productive, we need to change that person over and over and over. That should be their term limits. Every election should be a term limit. If you do not do the will of the people need to get that education and they need to understand this is not the person who represents me. We need to get money out of politics so that we have a return to morality and ethics in our government. We need to convince people that they need to be involved in this process because that is what's going to make it change. If we continue to do what we're doing right now, we're going to end up just like the movie Idiocracy. We're going to have people that don't make sense and don't understand anything, and they're just going to be the most popular person there. We need to get money out of politics. We need to have transparency and responsibility of our elected officials. We, the people, need to hold them responsible. We, the people, need to make sure that they are not going to stay in power just because they belong to my party. If they're not doing the job, kick them out. Replace them. make our voices heard. Call in Chip's radio station and say, you know that bum? We gotta get rid of him. And make sure that people understand why you feel that way. But we as people need to come back into the political process. We need to get those people that are not affiliated to join a party. I don't care which party, but speak up. We need the people to be the fourth part of government. Judicial, we need to get rid of that concept of it's this other country. It's our government. Take responsibility.
That ends our question. That ends our question period. Rick won the coin toss and Andy. Yeah. Who's first up?
I went first because
You
I
went
lost.
first. Yeah.
I mean,
So my point is that the person needs to go first on the closing statement. So this will be 3 minutes. Here's what you can.
so a closing statement. I hope that we've been mildly entertaining, but I hope that you actually got some information out of this. Rick and I agree on many things. We're both Democrats. We should agree on many things. We disagree on some things as well. This is the first part of the process of getting us to go ahead and send a good candidate in November. We need to have somebody who can actually win this election. I am that person. I have my military experience. I have my healthcare experience. I have the background of, I've been a Democrat forever. I need you to understand that I have bold ideas. One of the problems that I see with people who are running for political office today, there's 3 types. There's a politician, he wants the job, and he's usually owned by the party or by special interests. The second type is the statesman. They've lived the life, they understand what it means to be a Democrat, they live that, and they are inspiring. And the third type is the person who's transcendent. They have gone from being a statesman to the person that lives that lifestyle, that truly believes in democracy, that truly believes in what their party stands for, but they're also now a leader. They have ideas, and they have the spirit, and they have the drive and determination to make change for the people of this country. It is not that they want to be there for their own self-interest. You can think of Trump, you can think of Mark Kennedy. They're in it for their own special interests. You want somebody who's going to represent the people. I'm not doing this for me. I don't care. My life is set. If I dropped out of politics, that's okay. I'm doing this because I'm on a mission for my grandchildren. We have to do something for our future. We need to have somebody that can actually win this election, not being the best Democrat, but by being the best Nevadan who's going to represent all of Nevada. We need to make sure that people on the other side of the fence can appreciate what we're trying to do, that we're trying to make all of Nevada better, that we're trying to unify Nevada and make this the best place that we can live in. Not just for this special interest, not just for this group of people. We need to do it for all of Nevada. That is why I think that you can find that I'm the best candidate, because I have ideas, I have experience, I have the life experiences that are going to make people want to vote for me. What do people say when they meet a veteran? Thank you for your service. It wasn't something I did for other people. I did it for me, for my country. I want to serve my country again in the form of representing people. So again, I hope that you will vote for me.
Mr. Shepherd.
Thank you. I've been an activist in the community for over a decade. I occupied Wall Street. I stood up to local law enforcement. I've been down at the legislature protesting for every Tuesday, out in front of the federal building for an hour. All these things were additive. They're part of me. They're what I do because they're what I believe in, who I am, and who I care about. I have had a great deal of success doing what I do, but it is time for me to move on to a new level. So I have new tools, so I can implement even better changes. Armed with absolutely nothing expose corruption in the Reno Police Department, cost the chief dozens of other cops, and policy changes statewide were affected because of what I did. And I did it because I was on the winning side of institutional racism. I don't have to even be a victim of nonsense to recognize it and get offended by it. And you can't grasp a problem without being first personally wounded by it. How can you possibly hope to represent others? How can you speak to the notions of empathy and understanding if you can't appreciate something without having been through it directly? Okay? I wasn't the one who was mistreated by law enforcement, but I saw it, and I won't stand for it, and I did something about it. That's what you should want in your representative, is someone who will see something that's a problem, will do something about it. I don't ask permission from corporations or lobbyists. I don't take PAC money. I'm not interested in being beholden to any special groups. I've been self-employed most of my adult life, which means I haven't had a boss. I'm used to choosing a path and doing it. And with your help, I'll have some better tools. Maybe I can do some bigger and better things. I really appreciate the opportunity to do so. I believe that my track record as an environmentalist, as an activist, as an educator here at this university certainly speak to my character and my abilities, and I would like to represent you.
Thank you, Mr. Shepard. So thank you to all of you for attending tonight. Thank you to the candidates for what I thought was really thoughtful discussions on many issues, so I appreciate that. I also want to thank the candidates. They collectively made this happen. This wasn't sponsored by anybody else, but these two candidates, so thank them for that. You did get a chance to tell people how to get a hold of more information for you. Is that in written form someplace? If they want to find out the website? Or?
I've got it.
Good.
That's all in Thomas.
RickShepherd.com.
Website.
One of these guys, and stick around and answer any other questions you might have. So thanks.
Yeah.